Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Psychic Diaries that you are watching probably on veryparanormal.com. I am Michael Lamport, and I am the producer of the TV series Rescue Mediums. And with me is the wonderful Jackie Dennison, who is a spiritualist and a medium at Feathers Academy in the UK. And she is also one of the hosts of the show Rescue Mediums. Now, on Psychic Diaries, as those of you that watch it know, we interview people that have had paranormal experiences and the like, and the road that they're on, and all that jazz. So we're lucky today to have the wonderful Amy Major with us, and Amy is. She's a medium. She's a healer. She's also a spirit rescue specialist. And just on one lighter note, before we ask you the questions, Amy, is I was scanning through your website this morning, and I myself, because I'm in Canada, but I was doing a lot of domestic chores this morning, vacuuming and stuff like that. And I was scanning your website, and I thought it said house cleaning. And it doesn't. It says house clearing. And just because my mind was there, and I was thinking, wow, that's interesting. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is Amy Major, and hello, Amy, and thank you so much for being on this.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. The cleaning thing, I'm actually a clean freak. Everything has to be clean in my house. So that's actually a really great idea. Hey, while I energetically clean your home, I can also clean it too. You ready to go? I have no problem with that. My husband thinks I'm kind of anal when it comes to cleaning the home, but I'm what they call a minimalist, not having too much stuff in the home, other than my knickknacks.
Look at the busy.
Yes, the books and all sorts of things are wonderful to have. You never have enough. Oh, and here is my cat. We were talking about cats and dogs earlier.
So, Amy, when did you first get into studying spirit and feeling spirit?
Well, I started talking to spirit when I was about 4 or 5 years old, maybe earlier than that. I've been hearing them my whole life. But it's been really mostly spirit guides. Spirit guides been talking to me my whole life. I had a lot of out-of-body experiences, past life dreams, a lot of feeling like, I'm not in my body, a lot of more spiritual psychic phenomenon going on in my childhood. It wasn't until I was about, I'd say 22, that I actually went to go see an astrologer, and never had an astrology reading done before. And she looked at my chart and she's like, you're a psychic. And I'm like, no, I'm not. She's like, yes, you are. You're a psychic and you're a medium, and you're going to devote your life to doing healing work. So I thought she was kind of crazy. And I'm like, no. But then there was a psychic center in the town that I actually lived in New Hampshire. So I decided, let's go get a second opinion on this one. So the voices that I kept talking to, they kept saying, go in. So I'm like, I went in, they confirmed everything. And all the experiences I've been having my whole childhood, they told me that was psychic ability and spirit ability, intuitive ability, that I didn't realize that I actually had. It was just something I thought was just normal. So of course, a lot of us intuitives, we think growing up that way is normal, but I guess it's not. So I started developing in my early 20s, and here I am, 45 now. And so it's been over 20 years that I started doing this work. So it wasn't something I was expecting to happen. I wasn't planning on being a psychic or a medium. It kind of just came to me. And every time I tried to walk away from it, the universe would bring me back to it. And my guides would say, no, you need to do this. So eventually you just give in and you're like, fine, I'll do it.
And do you still work with your spirit guides?
Every day. every day. And not only do I work with my guides, but my natural mediumship ability is to connect to spirit guides in general. So I do a lot of readings for people where I connect to other people's spirit guides. And I give them information such as, the reason why they're here, what their fears are, what they're trying to resolve, more spiritual, more information rather than this is how many kids you're going to have, this is where you're going to live. This is the more meaningful things that people need to know. What's the meaning behind their life and what are they really here to accomplish? Those are the things I love.
Yeah, well, I think that's a brilliant idea, because especially in times that we're all going through now, all over the world, is that, that's what we need. We don't really need somebody to tell us what the color of our new car is going to be.
Right.
But,
Exactly.
we want it to be more deep in our hearts and in our souls.
Well, I find it's more healing when you're able to connect to their guides and their spirit team and find out really intimate details about their life and the reason why they have certain challenges that they go through. I think it minimizes the stress and the conflict and the frustration that people have during those challenges. And they say, okay, I'm going to rise above this. I'm going to be able to see there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I chose this for a reason. Let me figure out how to get through it. So those are readings I like.
Yeah, it's making sense out of it all, isn't it? So it's another form of healing, really, isn't it? Where you're helping someone to understand their life path and their soul journey. So does that include, do you include like past life things as well within your readings, like on a soul, if you're doing like a soul reading for someone so that you are connecting with their spirit guides to get them to understand their journey here right now, do you also include a past life, their soul journey going past life? Yeah.
If it does come up, such as if a spirit guide wants to talk about an actual karmic situation that's happening for them, they're going to give them the root cause. They're going to show me the past life situation and how it directly interlinks with the karma that they're resolving in this life. Not only do that, I do past life readings for people because it helps them understand the bits and pieces of the roadmap that they created for their life here and see how it all interconnects throughout all lives.
Yeah, and it just makes sense. It's like, because I do past life work as well. I do regression, so that I get them to journey and I guide them through the questions rather than me saying this is what, I can see. But it's part of their development, and everybody works differently in that way. But it certainly absolutely gives you an understanding of why you're here right now and how you can use that information to help you right now to move forward, to lift your vibration. So it is directional, even though it's not like what color car, as Michael said, what color car you're going to have. Just talking about color for a minute, I think it's really interesting that all three of us are wearing blue today.
I know.
Which is a very spiritual color, of course.
It is.
Do you actually hear spirit like outside the ear, or do you hear them in the knowing?
I hear them inside my inner ear for the most part, where it's you hear it, but you feel it at the same time. It's that feeling like you can't describe it, but it's like it becomes part of you. So not only do you hear it, but you sense it, you know it, you feel it all at the same time. And when the guides do give you information, it's like a download. It's immediate. So it doesn't take you something that they give me in an instant. I have to take 20 minutes to say it. So those are the true downloads from the other side, because it's like instantaneous, less than a second for them to give you the information, and then it takes a while for you to actually say the information. We're so dense down here and so slower compared to the other side. So I get a little frustrated with that, but
and I wish that, this is sort of off topic, but I wish that Google would be able to download stuff in half a second.
That would be nice.
you know, when we're working like that, you just said about getting that information, the downloads of information. I think one of the hardest things that we ever learn as mediums is the difference between imagination and communication. You know, it's getting to, you know, go with that gut feeling that you've just had. One of the interesting things that I just want to bring up is, because I know you're an author, and I have to say I have both of your books right here.
Thank you.
Fascinating books. One of the things that you talk about in one of the books is finding that information and running with it. I think you give an example of wanting confirmation of something that you'd be given. You asked for a sign,
Yes.
and the sign, and then you said, well, okay, that's a sign, but it's not a big enough sign. Give me a big enough sign. And yeah, you've got a
it all
really
depends
big
on how
sign.
stubborn you are, you know, and I'm extremely stubborn. And so my guides would give me these subtle signs. I'm like, not good enough. I don't trust it. But, you know, over the years, you have to really trust those subtle whispers.
Yeah.
And but you have to get to that point of discernment. It takes years to get up to that level. It took me years to be able to do it. Until I got to that point, I needed billboard signs. I needed signs that came out and like flashed in your face that said, you got it, you got it, you got it. It's not in your head. And, you know, once my guides realized I didn't need those signs anymore, they didn't give them to me unless I really said, I really need a sign right now for this.
Yeah.
And then they would give me one, and they would get very creative with these signs, and it would be a lot of fun because I'm like, okay, how are they going to show it to me now? And it's just, it comes to a place where you have to trust. You have to trust they're going to give it to you. You have to trust that they're there and they're supporting you. But it is true how to determine whether it's just something you've made up in your mind, or if it really is an intuitive hit that you're receiving from someone, something, or a situation that's going on. And one thing that I always tell my students is trust everything until it tells you not to trust it. Because what you're doing is you're blocking the natural flow of energy that comes through when you're not trusting, when you're being so discernful of saying, is it this, is it this, is this? You're blocking the natural flow of an intuitive link. So I tell my students, believe everything, trust everything. And when that student says, no, that doesn't really make sense for me, then, you know, go into a different direction, find a different link, ask for more information from the other side, and then research and find out more detail. But don't stop that link because you're afraid to be wrong.
Yeah. That's when ego creeps in, isn't it? It's like ego can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing as well. I don't mean like the ego, like, oh, aren't I wonderful? Aren't I magnificent? I know this. No, actually, you don't. You're just a channel for, you know, that it comes through in that way. So that is a bad ego. But a good ego, I think, is going with that trust. Just trust that what you're being given is you know that what you're being given is there for a reason. And then it's up to you to sort of have that confirmation, however it comes in. And I think it doesn't matter how long we've been doing this, it's still great to be able to have that confirmation when spirit sort of, they'll give you something and you just go, oh, do you know what, I don't believe that. I mean, how good are these guys upstairs? You know?
Right. But I find that the weirder it is, the more right it is.
Yeah.
That's funny, you know, when they give you something completely bonkers and you're like, there's no way this is real, and you give it to them and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's why you just got to go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I give you a really good example of that. I mean, a couple of days ago during a reading, I always do what I call my tick list before. It's like a premonitions, really, that my guide gives me in the morning before I start the readings, or if I'm going on an investigation. And one of the things on it was flying ? Stroke pilot. So I thought, is this somebody that is wanting to be a pilot, somebody who is learning how to fly or whatever? And I'd seen about 4 clients, 3 clients said no, it didn't make any sense to them. The last client that I was reading for, she just burst out laughing. She went, oh my God, yeah, that makes total sense. She said, I've just started flying a drone. So she's the pilot of the drone. But I mean, I'm thinking of a plane, and of course It wasn't a plane at all. It was a drone, and she was doing it because she's the photographer and she's learning how to fly the drone so she can take photographs. So
Right.
it just goes to show how you just got to go with what you're given, no matter how it may seem to you. Because you
Right.
do start to say, oh, well, is that going to make sense? Is that, you know, and that's when our doubt creeps in. That's when ego creeps in, and it's like, no, just go with what you've been given it for a reason, no matter what that
Exactly.
reason is.
Exactly.
That's very true. And Amy, because we do a show called The Rescue Mediums, and you're a rescue medium, and how did you get involved in that aspect of the spirit world?
Well, as soon as I found out that I was a medium, didn't know anything about that, started sitting in development circles. And in these development circles, all of these lower level or earthbound spirits started kind of filling up the room. And we were in spiritualist churches, sitting in these circle groups, trying to communicate to the other side. I'm like, okay, I'm communicating to the other side, but I have like every spirit hanging off of me that wasn't in the light. They were somewhere in between. And I kept asking people, I'm like, what's going on here? Why is everything hanging off of me? I feel like they're dense and they're heavy and they're scary. And everyone would say, don't talk to them. They're evil. You know, leave them alone. You want to stay away from them. And so I did. I kept pushing them away and pushing them away. And every time I would come for a development circle, the same thing would happen over and over and over again for like 3 years. 3 years I tried pushing it away. And every time it would happen, I tried doing past life regression, hypnotherapy, energy cleanse, you name it, everything that I could do to get these spirits away from me, because all the churches were telling me if I was attracting these negative spirits, then there was something wrong with my energy that they were attracted to. So I looked inward to find out what was wrong with me. But then I did have one teacher that says, well, these are spirits that are in need of help. Why don't you go to your guides and find out what's really going on? So I would sit and I would meditate and my guides would come through, and I feel them just coming in right now. And they're like, okay, we want you to know that these are not bad spirits. Some are, some aren't. You're here to help them. We want you to help them. We want you to connect to them, talk to them, counsel, and help them find their way back to the light. And I'm like, you're crazy. There's no way. I'm like, there's no way. But I started really working with my spiritual teachers on the other side. They really started doing downloads. They started showing me situations. They started bringing spirits to me that were easier to work with. And I would gradually figure out how to help them into the light. And it would just happen over and over and over again. And every time I would go into another medium, say, what's going on? They would link in and like, yep, you're supposed to be this type of medium. You're not necessarily supposed to be a message medium that connects to loved ones like mom, dad. You're supposed to be a medium that connects to these spirits that are in trauma, in a state of fear, in a state of being held, not held against their will, but like a momentary moment where they're held in a time link, a time loop, where they're feeling like they're not able to move on. I'm supposed to connect to them. And it made perfect sense, because it's like, no matter how hard I tried, I could not get rid of it. And that's what I meant by, when something keeps coming back to you and over again, it's something you're meant to do. It's something you just have to accept and realize. The hardest part I find, and I'm sure Jackie can feel the same way, is being able to explain to people that these spirits aren't bad, that these spirits aren't evil, that they're not here to always harm us. You know, what's depicted in all the movies with ghosts. And quite often I would have so many women, children, people that are just lost come through to me and beg me for help to help them find their way. And I would start really questioning, because anything that anybody else had a question on, I questioned it myself. So I would start asking them, why didn't you see the light? What stopped you? I started asking questions to the spirits to find out more information. And then I would go to my spiritual teachers. Now, this is back in the year like 2000, 2001. No one was really ever talking about this type of work. So I had to ask around and nobody really knew. So I started Googling things that the other side would tell me, and I would find that information. And I started connecting people in Australia and New Zealand and in the UK, because people in the United States wasn't really talking about it. It was something that was like a hush hush, push in the corner. We don't talk about that type of thing. So I started doing research on my own. I started working, I started doing investigations, started doing house clearings. All of it I was probably really bad at in the beginning, because nobody really gives you an instruction manual for this. So over the years, I would go to books, and there was no books on this other than house hunting or ghost hunting, or, you know, spooky haunted house situations where people would tell a story, but no one actually gave you any instruction on how to actually do this work. So my guide said, write the book, show people you've been doing this work for about 10 years now, tell them what you know, tell them what you can do, and give them some instructions. So that's when I wrote my first book, Toward the Light. And people were like, oh, I didn't know this existed. People still don't know rescue mediumship exists. And I think that's one thing that I'm very passionate about, is educating the public, educating other mediums that want to do this work, giving them some type of structure so they don't have to go through what I went through years ago, over 20 years ago, where you're kind of lost, you're confused, you're hoping you're doing the right thing, because it is a form of mediumship that is so specialized. It's so different compared to psychic mediumship, that I think if we can give them a foundation, something that they can feel strong about, something they can feel clear and supported with, I think rescue mediumship can really grow and really become something wonderful.
Yeah, it's something it is needed. You know, I know that just from the amount of emails that I get from people who are wanting help or guidance in that way, that there are not enough rescue mediums out there who do this kind of work, and it is specialized, as you say. I'm sort of nodding the whole time you're talking, because I'm thinking, this is my journey. You know, what you're saying is my journey. What I really like about your books, both of them, is that you break things down and you talk about your team, and and I work with a team as well, spirit team here, not just the team on the earth plane, which Michael is part of my team on the earth plane, but the hierarchy of spirit guides that we work with on different levels, including the angelic levels, and the, you know, whoever wants to come in to help with whatever that situation is. And so you give a breakdown of all of that team, including, and this is something that was really important to me, your doorkeeper. And a lot of times when people, or the gatekeeper, when you talk to some people, they'll say, oh, do you know who your gatekeeper is? They'll go, what? What's a gatekeeper? You don't know who your gatekeeper is? But you know, the fact that this is so important when you're doing this kind of work, because that is very much part of the team. You have to have someone there who's going to close that doorway. You know,
well, that's the thing. Mediums that connect to the other side, they don't necessarily have a gatekeeper.
Yeah,
because they open up, they link in, they know who they're going to go to. With rescue mediumship, you're like a beacon, like a lighthouse. And so these spirits are coming through to you. You need a gatekeeper to kind of, I always say it's like that bouncer at a club saying, not you, not you, not you, you can come in, type of thing. And so they are our extra security so that we don't become overwhelmed. This isn't something a normal medium would recognize or understand. And they've even challenged me, say, you don't need a gatekeeper, you don't need all this protection when you're doing spirit work. I'm like, you're not doing the kind of mediumship I do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I think also, Amy, it's very interesting what you were saying there. I mean, because Jackie always talks about, you know, opening up and being a beacon of light. But I like what you said, because I get this question all the time, because part of my job on the show is to go around and get the locations. And a lot of people say to me, okay, like, do you think this spirit's going to harm me? You know, is it going to kill me? And my answer is just like yours. I say to them, well, if this is a Hollywood movie, yeah, it's going to kill you. But if it's a spirit, no, they're not violent. And you say the same thing, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. There are so many different types of earthbound spirits, and me being ex-military, I kind of put everything into structure. I'm just very structured when it comes to that. That's how I teach my classes and write my books. So I actually came up with 3 categories of earthbound spirits. It's something that my spirit team worked with me on, category 1, 2, and 3. And each category has a different frequency, different reasons why they've stayed behind. Like category 1 would be spirits that just happen to die very quickly. They got lost along the way. They're scared, they're confused. Maybe they have a little bit of unfinished business. They want to say something, but they're not harmful in any way. Most earthbound spirits fall into this category. There's level 2. These would be spirits that would commit suicide. They would be murdered. They would be having very traumatic deaths. They carry more emotional baggage. They carry a heavier frequency. They need more counseling. They need more support. They need more help from the angelics, people who come in to help support them. And they're giving me chills with that. And then they have category 3, where these are spirits that have passed. They're not looking to move into the light. They are just looking to harass people around them. It's a very small category. It's not as large as the other categories, but it does exist. But they only gravitate towards people that reside at the same frequency. It has to have a comfortable environment. So for the most part, I would say 90% of general public have nothing to worry about when it comes to these types of spirits. It's only when you invite them in. It's only when you play these games and use Ouija boards and other forms of opening these spiritual doors that allow kind of these lower level spirits in. So I do protection work on top of doing the clearing and rescue work as well, only because I find people dabble just a little bit too much. People are very curious, and sometimes they open doors that they don't want to, but that's what we're here for. That's what rescue mediums are here for. We're not only here to guide, but we're also here to protect, serve, and also to counsel a little bit everybody who's involved in the spirit world.
Yeah, absolutely. I class what we do as spirit counselling. It's something that I've always said, this is what we do. It goes with the job, because you just treat spirit and talk to spirit just the same as they would if they were on the earth plane, because they were once here. And so they have issues. So what is your issue? Why are you here? So it's about stripping the layers back, isn't it, really, when you do this kind of work? And of course, healing comes into it as well. And you are a healer. What kind of healing do you do?
I do a lot of clearing, healing work where I clear out the chakra system, the energetic bodies of the soul. I really do a lot of channeled healing from the other side. But I've learned to really channel, bring up earth energy, bring in universal energy, bring down divine light, and then kind of channel it into a frequency. I've learned how to adjust my frequency according to reprogramming of the body, clearing out imprints, lower frequency energy, spirit energy, demonic energy. Didn't really want to do that one, but it kind of happened. There's so many things, like I said, things keep coming back to you. I keep pushing it away. But I found that when I started doing real hands-on energy work, so many things were coming up. Most of the things that were coming up that were dense were mostly manifested energy that people were creating within themselves due to traumas or challenging situations that they'll just push into their subconscious. And they would eventually manifest into something. They would think, I have an attachment. And I'm like, no, you don't. You just have your own energy that's transformed into something that's really affecting you now. So it's my energy healing work is transformed, evolved over the years to doing a lot of energy clearing, attachment removal at this point, which I'm fine with. We don't have enough people doing this type of work. I wish we had more.
Yeah.
Well, you said I'm. It stuck in my mind. You said that you were in the military once.
I was in the Navy, yes.
In the Navy. Now, did you have these sort of feelings? Because one always has this opinion of people in positions like that, and the Marines or the Navy or the Army or Air Force is like, oh no, we don't want to talk about this at all.
I didn't talk about it in the military at all. I really never talked about anything until I was in my mid-20s, even when I was still doing development. I was hearing the voices throughout my whole military life, especially I lived on Dio Garcia, which is a tiny island in the Indian Ocean. And I would sit there on the beach and I would just talk with my spirit guides over and over and over again. And nobody would know. I would learn to talk with my inner voice, because after a while you start talking out loud to them because their voice is just as loud as everyone else's. And people look at you like, what's going on? Like, she's hearing voices. Oh my goodness. So you try to really just keep it to yourself. You don't really.
Because the Navy doesn't like that.
And I worked with, classified information. I worked in naval intelligence. So you don't really talk about this type of thing.
I had a way of getting around that, with people not being people looking at you, and you are talking in your head to a spirit guide or a loved one in spirit or whatever, whoever's popping in to say hello, for whatever reason. Is I get my phone. I just put the phone to my ear as if I'm talking to someone on the phone. And it's great because nobody knows that actually your phone's not turned on. You are actually just talking out loud to someone.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I see people with the earpieces. Yeah. And you hear them talking to you, you're looking for the earpiece.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to create one, just stick one in my ear. That way.
A really obvious one, a great big one, so that people can't make the mistake.
It's hard not to talk to them out loud because, we are very verbal. We're very physical. So a lot of things that we do to reciprocate the communication is to talk to them out loud. And we try not to, but people actually find it's rather funny because when I'm sitting there and I'm teaching in class, my guides will come through and I'll talk to them like I'm talking to you, and people will just sit there and they'll watch and see the conversation playing out. And, I'll get feisty with my guides and I'll get stubborn. I'll be like, yeah, I hear you, so it can be very comical for some people to see. The general public, well, I don't know, maybe they're watching this like, okay, now we're ready to see more. I don't know.
Well, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on like that sort of communication with spirit, that you're talking to them, but obviously I shouldn't say obviously, but I imagine that you talk to them in English, and people often ask, well, if you're speaking to a Chinese spirit or a Russian spirit that doesn't speak English, how can you understand what they're saying? So what is your opinion about that?
My opinion is once somebody, not earthbound, but once somebody moves into the light, their awareness now grows. They move into a nonverbal communication where they send you more images, feelings, sensations, and then the communication isn't through words exactly. They're more of nonverbal communication that we put into words. But also when they move into the light, they also have awareness of every language that's ever been spoken on the planet. So they have their own interpreters, and then they could just move into the frequency of, okay, I may have spoken Chinese or Mandarin or any type of dialect, but I now understand English because I'm in the light. I now have access to all this information, and they can give that to us. So we have to stop thinking of spirit as far as the limitations that we have here on the planet. They don't have those same limitations when they're in the spirit world. Now, if I were to communicate with an earthbound spirit and they're not in that light, they don't have that awareness, there will be a communication barrier between the two of us. But that's when I bring in my team. That's when I bring in their team. And we have interpreters that kind of work through us. And then we also do nonverbal through sensing, feeling, knowing, action. So it really, I find it doesn't get in the way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that totally, because a thought is a thought is the same in any language.
Right.
The thought comes before the word. It's there, like thinking of an orange. Everybody can think of an orange, but everybody would have a different sound for what that sounds like, but the picture is still the same, in any language. So, yeah,
well,
totally.
Except I'm being mean now, except for the French, because orange in French is orange. So who's copying who?
I find that the communication isn't a problem. Rather, the thing that I think is the most limiting is cultures, understanding different cultures,
Yes.
different belief systems. And so when they give you something, you're not going to know what it means because your culture is different. We have, I mean, different, the same language, but we have different terminology. So it can get lost in interpretation because that medium may not hold the information or knowing of that culture. So I think that is the most limiting when it comes to you do international reading of people. We do our best, but of course we're human, we're not perfect.
Well, you know, this is where the team all fits together, isn't it? Like, you know, oh, I need some help, just bring someone in. I used to work with a Portuguese interpreter in spirit. She would very often come in and she spoke a lot of different languages. And so she was very helpful. That was in my very early days when I felt as though I needed to have that connection. But I think, you know, we learn as we go along, Amy, don't we?
Right.
You know,
we do. It's a trial and error, what works, what doesn't work. You know, and everybody's different. Everybody has that go-to, you know, tool that they use.
And I think that's the difference with the kind of work that you and I do with spirit rescue work, or healing within that realm as well, is because when you do a reading for somebody, you've got them there straight away. You've got the feedback straight away. But when you're working like this, you're working blindly. Yes. And so, you know, you need to try and get as much information as you can in order to help. Right. So, you know, making sure that the situation is, you know, all the information prior to going, even though with rescue mediums, we totally go in blindly with it. We don't know anything before we go in.
And there's no real validation to kind of give you saying, yes, you're accurate with this, unless somebody happens to know the history. Exactly. And they can give you that validation. But at the same time, if they know the history, they're going to think you've looked it up and you're just making it up. So it's really hard to kind of say, I'm being sincere with this. I'm really receiving this information. I think it's just comes to what we have to trust and the general public has to trust.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you prefer actually being in a location to rather than doing remote rescue work?
I used to love being on location very much so. I've been doing just remote for the last 2 years. So I've become accustomed to it, but I'm a hands-on person. I really like being in the area, being able to sense and feel. It's just, it's more intense. And I think that not only are you connecting with spirit, but you're really there where you can connect to all the imprints of the area. You can also connect to the elementals. You can connect to any type of other spirit or energies that are there. I just find that it's kind of like, it's a difference between, you know, watching a movie and getting some details, or reading a book and getting all the details and getting all the information. Right. You notice I said, you know, movie just book. Movies have like such limited information of what they give you in a book. And it's the same thing when you're hands-on, when you're right there. I just think you just get more information. I think more people should be doing it on location, just because it's like you can have immediate results right away. Whereas when you're sending energy like thousands of miles away, it takes time for that to materialize. It takes time for that energy to shift. Yeah. So I think in person personally is better.
Yeah, I agree. But sadly, like you say, for the past year and a half anyway, nearly a couple of years, nobody's been able to go out and do personal things, right? Because of the pandemic.
I think it gave us this for many reasons, but for us to do the remote work, we have to realize our influence is spreading throughout the world. We're not going to be able to go to all these remote locations. We're not going to be able to physically be there. I think we had to learn how to adjust our energy so that we can spread ourselves to many locations on the planet, doing it remotely, because we have to assume we are going to be limited with travel. We're going to be limited with funds. We're going to be limited to not be able to go out to these places and be there physically. So I think this was forcing us to really hone in these skills to do this work remotely so we can help more people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's your favorite part of your work?
My favorite part is the rescue, and I'd be shocked to say that 20 years ago, something I absolutely did not want to do.
Yeah,
But I find the rescue mediumship is the most rewarding. It
yeah,
is so fulfilling when you're in that moment, when you have a spirit and their loved ones come in and you feel that bond and that reunion, and you just start crying because
yeah,
it's just so emotional. You're like, yeah. You're like, I did this. I helped with this. They wouldn't be able to do this without me. And not saying, don't get your ego involved, but it's saying, I did something that was meaningful. And I think that is what, really draws me in. It's rather than just saying, okay, yeah, you're going to be married, have 3 kids, hurrah. This is really working with someone's spiritual and soul journey. It's huge. It really is.
yeah. Well, you're doing a great job. Long may you continue to do so. And
Thank you.
I'm going to recommend these books, over and over again, because not only are you really, really easy to talk to, these books are really easy for people to understand a very, very complex part of a job that both you and I do. So, and I know that Towards the Light has CBS have used this, haven't they, for one of their series?
Yes, they're working on a pilot. They have everything's on hold, obviously, with COVID and everything. But it has been recognized in Hollywood. If it goes somewhere, if it doesn't go somewhere, I'm fine with that, because the true reason for creating this book was to help people understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm so glad I bought it, and I shall look forward to any future books that you produce. I shall be there waiting to go. Amazon.
I'm working on my 3rd book right now. This one's on attachment removal, energy clearing work. It's the next step.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Amy. We hopefully will be able to catch up with you again. I'm sure that our viewers will really get a lot from today's interview, and we'll put all your details at the end of this video, so that anyone wanting help or advice, or just to learn more about you, they can go straight to your website.
Yes, absolutely. I really appreciate you having me on, and love talking about rescue any chance I get. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Amy. It was absolutely wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.